Hello everybody, I am Ben from Team Panic, and today we're going back to the Melty for what I hope is the last of the kind of prototypey testy stuff before we get on to actually building the dual spinner version. Now, even if this is successful today, the dual spinner version is still probably 3 weeks to a month away, because to get that thing running, I actually need to CAD up some brand new weapon blades for it. I also need to order in a bunch of parts, and all of that, once again, if I ordered them today, that would take 3 or 4 weeks to get all those parts in. So this guy, probably not till at least next month, but that of course is relying on the fact that today we get this working as well as I want it to be working. Now, there was of course ARC's September meet, which is what the videos have been about on this channel for the past little while, which was a lot of fun. And of course I did bring the little Melty test chassis to ARC's September meet, and I did spin it up. That looked a little bit like this. So it does translate, kind of ish. I mean, in the safety of the arena, I was able to spin up faster and kind of stabilize a little bit better. I then was trying to get it to translate, and it translates slowly, like way slower than it was translating in testing here. I don't know what that's about. But it also was translating not quite the direction I was thinking it was supposed to translate, given where the heading light was turning on and where I was pointing the stick. Things weren't quite lining up. So all of this means to me that we're not getting our heading right, basically at all. I mean, it's getting somewhat close. It's close enough to actually start doing stuff, but it's not enough for it to actually do the thing and translate properly. So we need to fix that. And the other problem too that happened is at a very late point in the spin up, which I may not have even included in the video I just showed you, I again lost the magnet from the wheel, which meant that, yeah, it was, it wasn't working. In actual fact, now that I think about it, did I even put a second magnet on it? That might have been the problem. We might have been running on one magnet. Whoops. Anyway, the thing that is quite clear now is that the magnet system on the wheels is just not working at all. They fly off way too easily, and it's just a mess. So we need to replace that system. The other thing that I'm thinking is that I want to replace the wheels, because the wheels are terrible. They skid a lot, and that skidding is not great when we're trying to use the speed of the wheels to determine the Melty speed, because that skidding and slipping means that we're never going to be exact in our calculations as to where the Meltybrain is. So I want to try and upgrade those back to a silicon base, and I think doing the mold in place version of the silicon wheels, we might be able to survive that. Now, on top of that, I'm going to replace the sensor. So the sensor at the moment is currently this magnet sensor. However, there have been Meltybrain attempts that I've seen more recently, and I'll leave a link to the GitHub down below, that use BL Heli ESCs to drive the motors, and the BL Heli ESCs can feed back the RPM of the motor, because they know it, because they're the thing that's actually controlling the RPM. So we can just read the RPM from a BL Heli. That's beautiful. So that's what we're going to try next. Once again, there'll be a link to the GitHub down below where there is the explanation of how all of this stuff works. And I'm going to be using that myself to kind of, take some inspiration from what they're doing and, rebuild parts of my Melty code to get, hopefully, to get the speed working correctly without all of that. Then, if time permits, at the end of this, I have another idea for a different sensor that might kind of sit down the center of the Melty. So if we get there, I'm hoping to be able to bolt that in at some point today. And if I can do that and I can make it in weight, then I don't think we'll ever have a problem finding a heading inside our Melty again. But more on that later. Let's redo all the wiring, get the BL Heli ESCs in here, and see if we can spin up without any sensors at all, just with that BL Heli stuff. Let's take a look at the other important improvement, I guess, that we get by swapping to the BL Heli 32s. These two ESCs are not the same. One of them can handle more current, and it's the BL Heli 32, the tiny little ESC here. This is a hell of a lot smaller than the Afro, and it can handle 5 amps more, apparently. So if this thing can do everything it says it can do, this is going to be a massive weight and space saving, and that is, of course, a big problem because this guy doesn't have a lot of room in here, so much so that we've got electronics bulging out the top at the moment. So yeah, if we can get these tiny little ESCs to do the right job, then this is going to work a hell of a lot better than it currently is working. So hopefully all of this goes together. I'm going to go ahead and solder these into a new wire rig, and hopefully by that time we'll be able to get, or at least by that time in video logic, we'll be able to get the wheels off here and get them replaced and get some tests going. And these are the new wheels. So these have been molded in place, and you can see in the back here the black dots. Those black dots are silicon that is squeezed in on through, which means that these grip quite well. But I've also added some glue in between the outside and the middle, because you could still peel them back a little bit. Then the final step, which this one hasn't had yet, is to glue some covers in. So this one you can see, you can't see any black dots because I have had covers that I've glued on through. These are little just semicircular pieces of flexible PLA that get glued on in there, and the whole idea about that is to stop these little black dots from ripping back through with the forces on them, because these bits will be glued into a little cover, and the cover is going to stop them from ripping back through. Fingers crossed, hopefully, and all of that. So if these ones break, then there is no helping the Meltybrain in terms of silicon wheels. We're going to have to try something else because silicon is just not a viable solution. These represent my very best efforts to keep the silicon on while the thing is spinning at very, very high speed. And I have the BO Helis mostly set up. I still need to program them. I'm about to do that. And I've also done a brand new cable up for this, which has small XT30 connectors on it now, because one of the big problems we had was all of this massive cabling and connectors and stuff, which took up a lot of room in the little section here. So we've killed that by quite a lot. We've taken out a whole set of connectors and then shrunk down a lot of the connectors. So hopefully this will give us a little bit more space inside the robot. So that was a bit of a disaster. The code that I have now is kind of a three-way meld between my code, Spin Doctor's code, and Halo's code, and it did not work. It fell over quite considerably. We got some nice big 180-degree arcs of light that would appear for a second, spin round the robot, and then disappear for full seconds at a time, which is not what we were going for in any way, shape or form. Yeah, it did not work as I wanted it to. These wheels very, very nearly worked. They survived full spin up, which I was quite happy about. But you can see there's a little bit of damage here where I think I got too close to the edge of the plywood that I was testing on. I think it got nicked a little bit, and it's pulled a huge chunk of silicon right out of there. Now, I did mold these in place and then glue them, but apparently I did not do quite a good enough job of gluing down everywhere because there is no evidence of glue in under any of this stuff. So I need to remold some new wheels, but I also want to get some more testing done. So I'm thinking I'm just going to try and glue this piece back in place. I might have to shorten down the pegs a little bit to glue this guy back in place and hope that we can do some more testing with this. My idea is to cut a lot of code back out of this and kind of try and merge back to my original code base, because there was some, I tried to use some of Halo's triangulation code, which keeps a couple of different values for speed and kind of does a, it's a really interesting and complicated way of doing the heading, which should be more robust, but in this case it doesn't play nicely with the rest of the code I have, so that's a bad thing and I need to do something better about that. Alright, I'm going to update some code and hopefully we can get this actually getting a heading this time. Fingers crossed. That went pretty well. The heading is fairly stable now. With the Melty spinning up, it actually sits quite nicely and I don't need to do much tweaking to it to get it to stop and sit perfectly. So I think there's just a tiny little bit of the maths wrong and I could fix that in code and it should be fine. The problem seems to be the movement now, the translation as I translate, because the translation or the spin of the Melty is tracked by motor speed. As I change the motor speeds, it throws off the Melty spin and it just causes some issues. It also seems like my code is not quite handling the actual Melty, the stick movement on the Melty. It's not actually calculating the angles properly, I think, because I'm getting a bit of weirdness coming through on that. So probably need to make some changes to that as well, but I want to move on. This is working fairly well as it currently stands, so I want to add in an actual sensor this time, and I've got something a bit different up my sleeve. I have this, which is a gyroscope. And this is it. It is literally just a disc with some M6 nuts in it to add a bit of weight, and it's on a very small brushless motor, so it's going to spin incredibly quickly. And the whole plan is that this sits directly in the middle of the Meltybrain on some bearings, so that as it spins, it resists the rotation of the Melty and hopefully stays going in the same direction. So I printed some extra parts for it. We've got some parts that will hold it in the middle, and then we've actually got a little housing, clips around the outside like this, and that should then float in between in the middle of the Melty. So I've got the Melty. It's supposed to kind of go in here somewhere. I'll have to get rid of all this tape in a minute. That sits in under there with the, obviously with the gyro involved, and then hopefully that will do the job. So next thing I need to do is mount up some electronics. There's not a whole lot of space in here, so I'm probably going to have to wire up something quite small just to fit just this thing in. I did talk to the organizers of ARC, and I'm going to have this on a separate remote so that it can be started and stopped remotely, which, yeah, that's a thing. It's a little bit annoying because technically it is a sensor and it shouldn't be able to hurt anybody, but yeah, for safety's sake, we're going to start and stop this with a different remote. And yeah, this is the plan. The thing is, if we can do this and then we have this thing mounted up in here, we can hopefully put an encoder on the top here, and that will keep track of where this is at all points, which means that we can just read the encoder to know exactly where the Meltybrain is at all times, hopefully. So, best to try that out. Damn, so apparently my camera died somewhere during that time lapse and I got a bit carried away, so I have finished already. So here we go. This is what this now looks like. We have the gyroscope, which I need to fix the tape up because the tape has come a bit loose, which is stopping it from free spinning, but when the tape is done, it's able to free spin inside the Melty here. And the whole idea is that this outer ring section, it spins up, it acts as a gyroscope, and it resists the force of trying to turn this guy here, which is what happens when the Melty's spinning around. It's going to try and turn this through the bearings. So basically, all of this needs to do is overcome the friction in the bearings to keep itself straight and true. And for the moment, I've put a little bit of tape at the top here that gives us a little flag indicator of which direction the gyroscope is facing. So I'm going to fix all the tape up here, maybe add a little bit more hot glue to make it stay a little better, and then we're going to test this and see if we can actually get the gyro to keep a heading. Something tells me this might not work, but we'll have a look, because I thought it might work in the first place, and now I don't think it will work, so the only way to know is to test it. Oh, damn. So that didn't work. The gyro spun up correctly, that was totally fine, but it then didn't stay pointed in one direction. In fact, while it was spinning up the first time, it kind of jittered and it seemed to turn inside the Melty on its own, so that's not great at all. That kind of hints to me that there is something else going on here potentially, something that's like off balance or something. I don't really know. I think that maybe the gyroscope wheel itself is A, too light, and B, slightly off balance, which means that its gyroscopic force isn't correct. So I think there's still some legs in this idea, but I think rather than having a 3D printed version of this, I need a laser cut disc that I can put in here. So something that's heavier and then also has a higher MOI that we can use to actually get a proper gyroscope going on. Hopefully that's well balanced and then it will actually do the thing. So yeah, I mean, this has been an all over the place video because yeah, the new ESCs seem to work well. I just need to get my code working properly so that I can get the melting, like the translation going. The gyroscope, look, I think it still has promise, but this current iteration of that just does not work at all. So I've got a lot of things that need to upgrade and change, but all of that's going to have to happen going straight into that guy, because laser cutting a new gyro, I'm going to laser cut new weapons as well, and we're going to just do a full transplant from here into there. So this is probably the last video on the Melty for about a month, I would say. It's probably going to take me that long to yeah, get all of the parts that I need in to then push it over into that, because I'm going to do a new PCB so I don't have a massive wiring junk, and I'm going to do the weapon setups and of course the gyro all in one go. So that'll be the next thing that we do on the Melty, but like I said, that will be a while away yet. So, despite the fact this didn't quite go as well as I wanted it to, it is showing promise. I feel like we're getting there. I just need more time on the code and that type of thing. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next video.